All right, guys, this is part two about how I'm using the FT8 mode on my Xiegu G90 radio. I have a little bit of a unique setup that took some time to get going, so I thought I'd share it. So this is what I'm doing. I have my G90 radio set up in a remote configuration. It's actually out in the shack. The G90 radio has a DE19 USB audio interface. It's also from Xiegu. That is plugged in to a Raspberry Pi 5. That Pi 5 has a software running on it called USBIp, which exposes this device to TCP/IP on the LAN. So that goes to the wireless network, and now here inside in my office, I have similar software running on my PC, and that pretends like this device is plugged into my local PC, even though this is happening over the LAN, which is pretty cool. And then on my PC, I'm running a software called JTDX, which is an improved version of the WSJT software, I think is the name of it. And that supplies all of the digital modes. So let's go take a look at how this is all put together. So firstly, on the Raspberry Pi, I've installed a piece of software called USBIp. You can get this from apt install, like this, I believe. Once that's installed, we need to use it to find the USB device that's plugged in, that DE19. When that's plugged in, it actually exposes two USB devices. They're here, this CH340 serial converter. This is the thing that's actually controlling the radio. And then it also has an audio interface in it, and this is how the audio is coming into and out of the radio. So when you plug it in, both of these devices will show up. We can see this with the ls-usb command, or using the USBIp command. We can list those devices out to get the bus ID. So we see here 1-1.1 and 1-1.4, and those match up to these two devices. Once we have these bus IDs, we can use the USBIp command to bind those two device bus IDs, and then fire up the USBIPD daemon. And all of this on the Raspberry Pi is going to expose these USB devices to the network. So now on my Windows PC, I have a matching piece of software called USBIp. Here I'm using USBIp version 0.9.7.3. There's a GitHub page for this that I can link later on. And how this works is we type in the IP address that we set up the USBIp daemon on. That's my Raspberry Pi. That runs on port 3240. And we click Add Devices. And we can see right away those two devices that are being shared across the network. So let's double click on them each. And you probably heard that little Windows noise. So both of these devices are now added to my local PC over the LAN, which is pretty cool. Let's go take a look at our device manager. And under the audio inputs and outputs, we'll see a new one that's been added here called microphone for USB audio device and speakers for USB audio device. These are the audio inputs and outputs that are shared through this C Media Electronics USB device that is shared over the LAN. If we scroll down to ports, we see USB serial CH340. That's on COM11, and that is this device, the 340 from the USBIp sharing. So now that we have both of these devices added, we can go launch our software. Here I'm using that JTDX. I'm using version 2.2.159 right now. This is the JTDX improved version, which adds quite a bit of functionality. It's actually really nice. I highly suggest that you give this one a shot. Inside the software, we need to go to the General tab, of course, to add our call sign and our grid square. And on radio, for some reason, the built-in driver, the rig driver for the Xiegu G90 does not work properly. They actually have it listed, which is cool. It's down here, G90. It'll receive just fine, but it will not transmit properly. I don't know what's going on. But because that G90 is implementing the command set from the ICOM IC7000, that's what we need to specify as our rig. So let's just find ICOM IC7000. We're going to set the COM port to COM11. We saw that over here in our ports right? COM 11. Well, the rest of this section can be left as the defaults. I found that it is important to set the PTT push-to-talk method to cat rather than vox. This allows a more streamlined integration so that you don't have to do any other configuration. It's important that you click this test cat button. This will turn green when your radio is communicated with by JTDX. So this verifies all of our network connection through this USBIp, and everything is working. The whole pipeline is working up until here. Yeah, we see an error message here, and that's about the audio device. So let's go take a look at that. The next tab over is for audio. And here we need to make sure that we pick the microphone and the speakers options that were added up here in the audio inputs and outputs. Once we do that, let me relaunch the software. Okay, once we have the settings configured, next here inside of JTDX, all we need to do is pick our band. I want to operate on FT8, and I'm on 15 meters right now at the moment. I found with the G90 rig control driver, another problem with it was that it was not correctly adjusting the frequency, the VFO on the radio. Like for example, if we want to move over to 20 meters, we click on this and then use the drop down here to go to 14074. And that would not update the radio. I don't know if that's just a bug with JTDX, but sometimes this just doesn't work properly. I haven't figured out that part of it just yet. So now let's just operate on 15. And you operate by clicking on your monitor button, and we should see in our waterfall, we should see the signal analyzer here jumping around, and we'll see signals coming in here on the waterfall. And with any luck, we'll see some call signs and some activity here in the band activity. And from here, we can click on any of these to initiate a QSO contact to that remote. Let's see if we can get a reply here from this guy, KC9NRB. One thing to note when you're in the software, this power meter over here by default is all the way at the bottom. This isn't power like watts. This is power like the audio output level, like the audio gain. See, just transmit audio level. Make sure that this is up. It probably doesn't need to be all the way up, but this does need to be more than halfway up for my radio. By default, it's at the bottom, which means no audio actually makes it to the radio to be transmitted. Furthermore, on the radio, there's an RF gain because it's an SDR radio. You want to adjust that RF gain so that you're sitting here within, so that this is in the yellow or the green. If that RF gain is turned up too hot, it'll clip and cause some issues. Hey, it looks like our KC9NRB got back to us, and he reported that we have a negative 13 decibel signal. I'm getting a negative 20 from their side, so let's just let this QSO finish and we'll wrap up the video. I'm using the audio sequence here, which is just flowing through the QSO messages, which have been automatically generated as soon as I clicked on their CQ call over here on the left. I found that as long as the dB is better than negative 24, you'll have a reliable connection or reliable QSO. And even some of these are really loud here, like you see +1, and I've seen up to +4 or 5. Well, I don't know if that station will get back to us, so let's just wrap up the video here.